Nobody warns you about the first hour of your day. They talk about morning routines. They talk about cold showers and journaling and 5-minute meditations that promise to transform your entire existence before breakfast. But nobody talks about the specific and quietly devastating thing that happens inside your mind before any of that begins. Before the alarm fully registers. Before your feet touch the floor. Before a single conscious decision has been made. Your brain is already reacting. Not responding. Not choosing. Reacting. Automatically. To the memory of yesterday's unfinished argument, to the anxiety about today's meeting, to the notification that arrived at 11 p.m. and sat in your chest all night without you fully realizing it, to the ambient pressure of a life that keeps moving whether you have gathered yourself enough to face it or not. And here is the truth that most people live their entire lives without recognizing. The way your first hour unfolds does not just affect your morning. It sets the chemical and psychological tone for every interaction, every decision, and every moment of emotional regulation you will attempt for the next 16 hours. The science on this is not subtle. Cortisol peaks within the first 30 to 45 minutes of waking. Your stress response system is at its most primed and most reactive state before you have eaten a single meal or spoken a single word. Whatever pattern your mind runs in that window gets amplified through the rest of the day with a force that no amount of afternoon discipline can fully undo. The Stoics understood this long before anyone was measuring cortisol. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, a man whose single bad decision could end thousands of lives or collapse entire economies, began every single morning. Not with urgent correspondence, not with military reports, not with the pressing weight of imperial responsibility, but with a deliberate and extended engagement with the question of how he intended to meet the day. Not what he intended to accomplish, how he intended to meet it. The inner posture before the outer action. The quality of mind before the quantity of output. He wrote in his private journal, a document he never intended for anyone else to read. Because he was not performing discipline for an audience, he was actually building it for himself. Every morning, deliberately. As a practice of choosing his response to the world before the world had the chance to choose it for him. That distinction, choosing your response before the world demands one, is not a motivational concept. It is the entire game. Because the version of you that wakes up and immediately reaches for the phone, immediately re-enters the unfinished emotional business of yesterday, immediately lets the cortisol and the anxiety and the unprocessed reactions of the previous day flood back into full control. That version of you is not making choices. That version of you is being moved. By circumstance, by habit, by the path of least psychological resistance, by every unexamined impulse that did not get addressed yesterday and patiently waited through the night for its turn. And the version of you that emerges from that kind of morning makes worse decisions, snaps at people it loves, misreads neutral situations as threatening, spends enormous energy reacting to things that a calmer mind would have simply let pass. 6 truths. That is what this is about. Not 6 habits. Not 6 tasks to add to an already crowded morning. 6 truths the Stoics understood about the hours before 8 a.m. that most people in the modern world have never encountered in any organized form. Truths that, applied not perfectly but consistently, change what you bring into your day before the day ever has the chance to bring something into you. The first one is the hardest to hear. Truth number 1. You do not wake up neutral. Most people operate under a quiet assumption that sleep resets everything, that the night creates a clean break between who you were yesterday afternoon and who you are when the alarm goes off, that the morning is a blank slate waiting to be written on by whatever you choose to do first. It is not. Sleep does extraordinary things for the body and the brain. Memory consolidation, cellular repair, emotional processing. The research on what happens neurologically during deep sleep reads almost like science fiction in how comprehensive and elegant the restoration process actually is. But what sleep does not do is erase the emotional residue of the previous day. It does not neutralize the unresolved tension from the conversation that ended badly. It does not clear the low-grade anxiety about the thing you have been avoiding. It does not undo the physiological imprint of a day spent in reactive mode, moving from one stimulus to the next without ever fully choosing your direction. That residue is waiting for you when you open your eyes, not loudly, not dramatically, as a background frequency, a subtle orientation of the nervous system toward threat or toward calm, toward contraction or toward openness, toward the reactive posture or the responsive one. And that orientation, quiet as it is already shaping how you process the first inputs of the day before you have made a single conscious choice about how you want to feel. Epictetus, who was born into slavery and spent his early life with zero control over his external circumstances, built an entire philosophy around one central distinction: the things within our control and the things outside it. And the first thing within our control every single morning is not what we do. It is what we choose to examine before we do anything. He taught his students that the undisciplined mind wakes up and immediately hands control to whatever is loudest, the loudest thought, the loudest notification, the loudest emotional residue from the day before. And the disciplined mind, before engaging with any of that, pauses long enough to ask a question that most people never ask in the morning because nobody ever told them it was available to ask. What am I carrying into this day that I did not consciously choose to carry? That question is not therapy. It is not a journaling prompt from a wellness account. It is a precise diagnostic tool for identifying the reactive material that is already active in your system before the day has presented you with a single actual challenge. The argument you are still half inside, the resentment that did not finish processing, the anxiety that dressed itself up as urgency and attached to today's calendar before today even began. Identifying it does not dissolve it. The Stoics were not naive about the nature of emotion. Marcus Aurelius struggled with anger. Seneca admitted to anxiety. Epictetus wrote about grief with a specificity that only comes from genuine personal acquaintance. They were not teaching emotional suppression. They were teaching something more sophisticated and more useful: the skill of seeing clearly what is already present in you before it starts operating invisibly through your decisions and your reactions. Because the emotion you have not examined runs you. The emotion you have examined, named and consciously acknowledged still influences you, but you influence it back. You are in a relationship with it rather than simply subject to it. Tomorrow morning, before the phone, before the news, before the to-do list reasserts its claim on your nervous system, pause. 30 seconds. Ask the question, what am I already carrying? The answer will surprise you, and the surprise is the beginning of actual command. Truth number 2. Your first input of the day is a vote, not a small vote, Not a vote that gets counted and then forgotten, a vote that compounds. A vote that joins every previous vote you have, cast in the same direction, and adds its weight to a pattern that is either working for you or quietly working against you. 1. Morning at a time, with a consistency that eventually becomes indistinguishable from who you are. Most people do not think of reaching for their phone as a vote. They think of it as a reflex. Something that happens before the decision-making part of the brain is even fully online. The hand moves, the screen lights up, the scroll begins. And within 90 seconds of waking, the mind that was just in the slow restorative quiet of sleep is now processing other people's emergencies, other people's opinions, other people's carefully engineered content, designed by some of the most sophisticated attention capture systems ever built specifically to feel more urgent than whatever you were about to think on your own. And the vote that cast is this: external reality gets to define my internal state before I do. Seneca wrote something in a letter to his friend Lucilius that lands with particular force in the age of infinite scroll. He wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. He was describing the mind that has not been trained to choose its first inputs. The mind that wakes up and immediately imports the anxieties, the conflicts, the manufactured urgencies of the outside world, and begins suffering through them before a single one of them has actually arrived at the door. The Stoics called the discipline of choosing your mental inputs prosoche, attention to self. The deliberate practice of governing what you allow into your mind, especially in the moments when the mind is most open and most impressionable. And the mind is never more open and more impressionable than in the first 20 minutes after waking, when the prefrontal cortex is still coming fully online and the brain is in a state that neuroscientists describe as hypnopompic, a transitional state between sleep and full waking consciousness, where suggestions, inputs, and emotional tones land with unusual depth and stay with unusual persistence. What you put in during that window does not just pass through, it settles. The person who spends that window inside a social media feed is not just consuming content. They are allowing the emotional tone of that content, the outrage, the comparison, the anxiety, the noise, to settle into the neurological foundation of their entire day. The person who spends that window in deliberate quiet, in intentional reading, in the kind of focused and self-chosen reflection that the Stoics practiced every morning, is casting a completely different vote. They are deciding that their own mind gets the first word before the world demands one. This is not about being uninformed. It is not about avoiding reality. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire. He dealt with wars, plagues, political betrayal, and economic collapse. He was not avoiding difficult information. He was choosing the internal state from which he would engage with it. He was casting his vote for clarity before chaos, for intention before reaction, for his own values before the world's demands. The vote you cast with your first input shapes the emotional posture you carry into every conversation, every decision, and every moment of pressure the day will bring. So tomorrow morning, before the feed, before the headlines, before the notifications, ask yourself one question. Whose voice do I want in my mind first today? Yours or everyone else's? Cast the vote deliberately, every single morning, because every single morning it counts. Truth number 3. Stillness is not laziness, it is preparation. There is a particular kind of guilt that high-achieving people carry in the morning. The feeling that every minute not spent in productive activity is a minute wasted, that lying still, sitting quietly, or simply existing without generating output is a form of failure dressed up as rest. That the person who is already answering emails at 6 a.m. is somehow winning a competition that the person sitting in intentional silence is losing. This belief is not just wrong, it is precisely backwards. And the cost of it is paid not in the morning, but throughout the entire day, in the quality of decisions made from a mind that never had the chance to fully arrive before it was already demanded of. Marcus Aurelius did not begin his mornings in motion. He began them in reflection. The opening entries of meditations are not action plans. They are not task lists or strategic frameworks or competitive analysis of Rome's geopolitical position. They are a man sitting with his own mind, examining his values, questioning his assumptions, preparing his inner world for the outer one that was about to make enormous demands on it. The most powerful man in the known world considered this the most important use of his first hour, not because he lacked urgency, because he understood something about the relationship between stillness and genuine effectiveness that most modern high performers have completely backwards. Stillness in the morning is not the absence of productivity. It is the foundation that makes real productivity possible. Here is what is actually happening in the brain during intentional morning stillness. The default mode network, the system responsible for self-referential thinking, long-range planning, and the integration of complex information, is most active when the mind is not being bombarded with external demands, the insights that feel like they arrive from nowhere, the sudden clarity about a problem that has been resisting solution, the genuine creative connections that no amount of grinding focus can force. These emerge from the default mode network doing its work. And the default mode network cannot do its work when the mind is immediately flooded with incoming information and reactive demands from the moment of waking. The stillness is not empty. It is full of exactly the kind of cognitive work that the busy, reactive, input-saturated mind cannot access. Epictetus taught that the quality of your inner life determines the quality of your outer one, not the other way around. Most people spend their entire lives trying to arrange the outer circumstances well enough that the inner life finally gets to feel settled. The Stoics understood that this is a project that never completes. The outer circumstances never fully cooperate. The only reliable path to a settled and effective inner life is to cultivate it directly, deliberately, in the quiet before the noise arrives. 10 minutes. That is the entire practical application of this truth. Not an hour of meditation that requires a specific cushion and perfect silence and a life organized around spiritual practice. 10 minutes of intentional stillness before the first external demand of the day, before the phone, before the news, before the inbox reasserts its claim on your attention and your nervous system. Sit with your own mind. Let it arrive fully before you ask it to perform. Let the default mode network do the integration work it was designed to do. Let the stillness be preparation rather than absence. The day will be loud enough. The demands will be relentless enough. The reactive pulls will be numerous enough. Give your mind 10 minutes of quiet first. What it brings to the rest of the day in return will make those 10 minutes the most productive ones you spend. Truth number 4. The morning version of you makes decisions the afternoon version of you has to live with. This is not a metaphor. It is a neurological reality that plays out in your life every single day, whether you are aware of it or not. And the people who understand it operate with a specific kind of morning intentionality that looks almost unfair in its results, compared to the people who are still treating the early hours as simply the beginning of the day, rather than the most consequential decision-making window in it. Decision fatigue is real. The research on it is consistent, and the implications are significant. Every decision you make, regardless of how small, draws from the same finite reservoir of cognitive and emotional resources. The willpower that lets you hold your tongue in a tense meeting at 3 p.m. is drawing from the same well as the patience you extended in the 9 a.m. conversation that ran long. The focus that carries you through the difficult work in the afternoon is depleted by every reactive choice, every unplanned context switch, every moment of emotional management that the morning demanded before you were fully resourced to give it. And here is what this means in practical terms. The decisions you make before 8 a.m., specifically the decision about what mental and emotional state you carry into the first hours of the day, determine how full that reservoir is. When the afternoon arrives with its real demands, Seneca wrote that a person who does not know which port they are sailing to cannot find a favorable wind. Most people wake up and immediately begin responding to whatever arrived overnight, to whatever the algorithm decided was most urgent, to whatever emotional residue from yesterday found its way back to the surface first. They begin the day as passengers in their own lives, being moved by currents they never examined and never chose, and then they wonder why by midday they feel depleted by nothing. They can specifically identify. The Stoic morning practice was fundamentally a practice of pre-decision, deciding in the calm of the early hours how you intended to meet the specific challenges the day was likely to bring before those challenges arrived with their full emotional charge and demanded an immediate response. Marcus Aurelius did this with remarkable specificity. He did not write vague intentions about being a good person. He wrote about the specific difficult people he would encounter that day and how he intended to respond to them. He wrote about the specific frustrations that public life reliably delivered and pre-decided his response to them while his mind was still calm and his resources still full. He was making decisions about his character in the morning, in stillness, with full cognitive resources available, so that the afternoon version of himself would not have to make those decisions in the middle of the pressure that makes reactive responses feel inevitable. This is the practical application. Before the day makes its first demand, identify the 1 or 2 situations most likely to pull you into reactivity today. The conversation that has been building tension, the person whose behavior reliably frustrates you, the circumstance that has been triggering anxiety. Name them specifically. Then pre-decide. Not how you will feel, you cannot fully control that, but how you will respond, regardless of how you feel. The afternoon version of you is going to face those situations with whatever resources the morning version of you left available. A morning spent in reactive consumption leaves the afternoon version depleted before the real work begins. A morning spent in deliberate preparation leaves something in reserve for the moments that actually matter. Protect the morning. Not for productivity, for the version of yourself you want showing up when the day gets difficult. Truth number 5. What you say to yourself before 8 a.m. is either building you or quietly dismantling you. Not dramatically, not in ways that are easy to trace back to their source. Quietly, consistently, with the kind of compounding effect that only becomes visible when you look back across months and years and notice that your relationship with your own capability has either grown stronger or grown smaller, and you cannot point to a single moment that caused it, because it was never a single moment. It was every morning. The accumulated weight of every internal conversation you had with yourself before the world added its voice to the mix. Most people have no idea what they are actually saying to themselves in the morning. The internal monologue runs on automatic. It rehearses yesterday's failures without being asked. It anticipates today's difficulties with a negativity bias that evolution built in for survival, but that the modern world has turned into a background frequency of low-grade self. Undermining that never fully stops. It compares. It catastrophizes. It narrates the gap between where you are and where you think you should be in a tone that no decent person would use on someone they cared about. And it does all of this before you have had a single cup of coffee. Epictetus taught something that cuts directly through this pattern with unusual precision. He taught that it is not circumstances that disturb us, but our judgments about circumstances. And the judgments that carry the most weight in any given day are not the ones you form in response to dramatic external events. They are the ones you form in the quiet of the morning about yourself, about your capacity, about your worth, about whether today is a day you are moving towards something meaningful or simply enduring until it ends. Those judgments are not facts. They are habits. And habits can be examined and replaced with something more accurate and more useful. The Stoics called this practice of examining and redirecting internal dialogue the discipline of assent. The recognition that between any impression, any thought that arises automatically in the mind, and your acceptance of it as true, there is a gap. A moment of choice. The undisciplined mind lets every automatic thought pass through that gap unchecked, treating whatever arises as simply the truth of the situation. The disciplined mind learns to pause at that gap and ask a question the automatic mind never asks. Is this actually true? Or is this just familiar? Because most of the self-undermining internal dialogue that runs in the morning is not true. It is familiar. It is the well-worn groove of a pattern that has been running long enough that it feels like reality, rather than like a habit of perception that can be examined and changed. The difference between those two things, true and merely familiar, is one of the most important distinctions a person can learn to make about their own mind. Marcus Aurelius returned every morning to a specific set of reminders about his own nature and capacity, not affirmations in the hollow modern sense of repeating pleasant fictions until they feel true. Specific, grounded, philosophically examined statements about what a human being is capable of and what a good day of living actually requires. He was not inflating his ego. He was correcting the automatic deflation that the undisciplined morning mind reliably produces. Tomorrow morning, before the automatic internal monologue runs its familiar course unchallenged, catch it. Name what it is saying. Ask whether it is true or simply familiar. Then choose the more accurate story deliberately. The voice you give the most airtime in the morning becomes the voice that narrates your entire day. Make sure it is one worth listening to. Truth number 6. The way you end your morning determines whether any of this actually holds. Most people treat the transition out of the morning as a non-event. The alarm goes off, the routine happens or does not happen, and then the day begins, and the morning dissolves into whatever comes next, without any deliberate closing, without any intentional bridge between the inner world that the early hours offered access to and the outer world that is about to demand everything you have. And that missing bridge is where most of the morning's work gets lost. Think of it this way. You can spend 40 minutes in genuine stillness, in deliberate reflection, in the kind of intentional preparation that the Stoics practiced every day. And then your phone delivers one piece of friction, one unexpected complication, one piece of news that lands wrong, and within 90 seconds the entire internal architecture of the morning collapses, and you are reactive again. Not because the morning practice was insufficient, because the transition out of it was unprotected. The Stoics understood that the inner work of the morning was not meant to be a bubble that the day eventually pops. It was meant to be a foundation that the day builds on. And foundations require a specific kind of closing attention that most modern morning routines completely skip. Seneca wrote that we should go to meet each day with our values already decided, rather than having them decided for us by whatever circumstance arrives first. The closing of the morning is that decision. The deliberate moment where you take everything the stillness and the reflection and the pre-decision work produced and compress it into something portable. Something you can actually carry into the noise and the demand and the relentless forward motion of a full day without losing it the moment the first difficulty arrives. Marcus Aurelius did this with a single question he returned to at the threshold of each day's demands. A question so simple it sounds almost insufficient for the philosophical weight it was carrying. The question was this: what is the one thing I will not compromise today regardless of what the day brings? Not a list, not a set of goals. One thing. The non-negotiable. The line that reactive circumstances do not get to move. For him it was sometimes patience, sometimes honesty, sometimes the commitment to see the people around him clearly, rather than through the distortion of his own frustration or pride. One thing, chosen deliberately in the calm of the morning, carried as an anchor through everything the day delivered. That anchor is what makes the morning practice real rather than ceremonial. Without it, the morning is a pleasant experience that evaporates on contact with actual life. With it, the morning becomes the place where you decided who you were going to be today, and the day becomes the place where you find out whether you meant it. Here is the complete truth that all 6 of these mornings add up to. You are not trying to have perfect days. You are not trying to eliminate reactivity entirely, or achieve some frictionless Stoic serenity that ancient philosophers wrote about, but real human beings living real lives cannot actually access. You are trying to close the gap. The gap between the person you are when the day is running you and the person you are when you are running the day. That gap closes one morning at a time, one deliberate first hour at a time. One honest internal question asked before the world gets to ask its own. 6 truths. One morning. Practiced not perfectly but consistently. That consistency, returned to every single day before 8 am, becomes something the reactive world genuinely cannot take from you. And if these ideas landed somewhere real for you today, consider sharing them with someone whose mornings could use exactly this. Stoic origin exists for the people who are ready to stop being moved by everything and start moving with intention. Subscribe and stay in that company.